This is Derek. I want to welcome you to an episode called Big Topics for Emotional People. It's an episode of a show called Talking with Famous People. I'm your host, Derek. And sure, we're going to have big topics for emotional people, but we're going to have more than just that today. In fact, we are going to prepare shortly a variety of foodstuffs. I'm going to start up the barbecue. I'm going to move it background to the front so I can watch TV while I'm barbecuing. And I plan on queuing up some chicken. Hi, Winston's mom. Queuing up some chicken, maybe a little bit of beef as well. And I'm considering making some salad also. Because you know what I like to say when it comes to salad? Why not? Huh? Is anybody going to throw me in jail for eating a salad? I don't think so. We're going to chat here right now. Even though I'm going to be mostly busy doing some things for a second, I'll have my glasses with me so I can read the chat on the phone as well. All right, we're going to bring it up here. We're going to split the tab with the basketball game. And I'm going to put it on live chat. We're going to scroll down. That was a huge salad. I'm not going to make that huge a salad myself today, but there are more ways to measure a salad than by its hugeness. Before I progress into these many very important activities that I'm doing, let me pull this bong rib, what we might call bong rib plus. It's got a little bit of extra spice to it. All right, that's fine. I'll sprinkle a little bit of weed on top of the spices. And then let's enjoy a nice spicy bong rib. So I did clip out another video for me to type, please. This one is going to be interesting, challenging, probably a bit of a shorter type police video because um, it's this Australian lady who does like MBTI skit stuff. So the thing about that is, obviously, she's not exactly talking about, say, cognitive functions. She's revealing what she thinks the types stereotypically are like. Dear Kristen, is that her? Yeah. I was actually quite surprised by the quality of the content, like in the sense that it's well made. She's she just has herself doing all the acting, but she puts it together so that it looks like two people are having a conversation with each other. The acting in general is good too, I think. And perhaps most surprisingly, the writing's not bad, you know. She got she managed to pull off a couple of pretty good jokes in there. Well, she says she's an ESFP. I don't see myself throwing her in type jail, obviously, but I think it's super interesting that you have somebody making content who says she's an ESFP. It rarely happens. Are you South Sudan first or Equatorial Guinea first? I have no position on the matter. I don't know anything about what's going on with that. They are nicknamed the performers. Well, she certainly plays it as the performer in terms of her trying to like represent it in the skit, right? How do you tell if an MBTI topologist is supposed to be trusted or not? I mean, I guess there's a couple of separate questions. There's the question of which people can be trusted to to be well intentioned about their typology content. Like, you get somebody like Marty, who's clearly a sociopathic predator kind of guy. He can't be trusted in any capacity. You get also people who are questionably whether or not maybe they're kind of griftery, like C.S. Joseph or DSP, they have superpowers. I don't think you can trust those kind of people because I don't think they're. I think there are their ulterior motives are their primary motives, and that's just my opinion, obviously. Uh, then I think there are the majority of type producing people who just produce some content on typology and are trying to share information that is correct, but are probably going to be only intermittently correct and perhaps misleading about other things in a way that renders their sometimes correctness not worth anything. Then there's a question of who can you trust to actually type you and get it right? Well, the better question is who can you trust to type you and be able to defend the conclusion after the fact? And that list includes me. Who can you trust to understand cognitive functions properly and in a way that's exclusively correct of all other uh, interpretations that for which there are exclusivities, obviously me, because most people will not be telling you what I tell you, which is the way I explain it is correct and everybody else is wrong. What some wrong people will try to do is say, well, in this system, it's this, but in that system, it's this. No. It's not like kilometers versus miles, okay? It's like doing math correctly versus doing math incorrectly. Like some people are doing math correctly, and other people are going, well, look, we know that 2 plus 2 is 4, and we see 4 here, so your addition, regardless of whether it was attained by a multiplication or not, or division or something else, That's not a good way to do things. Ay, ay, ay. Typology is like this. It's like medicine, okay? Except it's medicine where there's this whole city called Medicine City, in which there's one actual doctor, and everybody else is doing varying degrees of voodoo magic, snake oil nonsense, Reiki, horoscopes, and everything else. So people naturally think, oh, nobody should get medicine because obviously that's just a bunch of hokum. Well, like, what do you trust in the typology community? Exactly one thing, me. If you mean trust in terms of trust to be correct, there are plenty of people who are trustworthy, but they just don't understand what they don't understand, you know? One of the ways you know I'm the correct one is other people aren't even claiming to be correct. They aren't saying, I am right about this and everything exclusive of what I'm saying is wrong. So how could anybody possibly think they're the ones who are right about it? They're not even right about the fact that someone's right and everybody else is wrong, you know? Obviously, it doesn't have to be the case that one person was right. It could be the case that nobody got it right yet, or it could be the case that what I'm explaining is obvious enough that lots of other people explain it the same way. It's not either of those cases, but it could be, right? Now it's gotta be this way. There we go. Okay, so what am I doing? What am I making? What am I shooting? What am I baking? What am I fooling? What am I flaking? See what's happening here. Every hit you take is like the last hit Ashy Bowl. No. Usually I don't hit that. The only reason I was hitting that one like that was because I put ground up Adderall on that one, so I didn't want to waste it. I do sometimes pull second hits off of bowls, but generally I'm very wasteful. I'll pull this one and then I'll tap out the rest of it whatever I don't pull through. I don't know who Michelle Wilson is, but you know, there's no good way to engage typology except by learning everything that I have to teach about it and practicing accordingly. The biggest problem with typology is the fact that it seems like such ideationally rich soil, you know? It's like, oh, I can play with ideas here and come up with my own little twists, my own dichotomies, and my own systems. And, maybe, in fact, instead of it being extrovert, maybe it's like extroverted. Maybe there's subtypes. Ooh, I've got some fun ideas. That is not what anybody should be dealing with typology. No. No, I'm not a shrimp. Oh, the fact that you're here reminds me. After I ended the stream last time, I saw that Hero was here. I definitely would have been like, you're here. But I didn't notice it until after I had ended the stream, come inside, and I saw it on the TV. You were also here. at the end of that last stream. I didn't see you either before I ended the stream. So, Eric, have you heard of otroverts? No, I have not heard of otroverts. You know, it's like, by and large, it might be good as a general rule to be open to new ideas about things. Like, for example, um, hey, I've got a new idea for. Here's a new idea I heard somebody say sometime. Uh, Here's a new idea. You drive cars on the freeway, have along the freeway have little windmills that turn to generate electricity because the cars will make so much wind. I thought, well, that's a new idea. I think it's important to be willing to listen and consider new ideas, especially for things like that, right? Here's a new idea. If in fact it's a clever insight that helps provide potentially solution to a problem or works towards a desired outcome in some fashion in a way that hasn't been done before, blah, 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 then fantastic, right? There are other kind of things where you definitely don't need new ideas. So, like a song is starting to come together. You imagine some people working on a song and starting to come together. It's got a good hook and the vocal melody verse, and then it's got the chorus, and it sounds like it is moves properly, like it's born from the verse properly, and it slaps. And then one of your bandmates goes, "What do you think if we like change, kind of tweak that melody a bit now, though, and we make it a little different, and maybe we put a part in between those two, and ooh, I've got an idea. Like you could put some like spoken word over the top of it." Okay, so in that instance, what you're talking about is somebody not getting that you're building to attain a specific, unique, distinct identity. You are not just throwing whatever onto things, right? That's never going to make anything better. Well, typology is like the latter and not like the former. Typology is an explanation that either correctly or incorrectly articulates understanding of cognitive functions and personality type. So, like, or, hear me out. Maybe the seasons, you know how they say it's caused by like the tilt of the earth? I've got some other ideas. Maybe it's caused by viruses that we all catch that make us perceive the seasons, even though they aren't real. We don't need more new ideas to explain something that we have fully and properly explained, right? Now, I'm not saying cognitive functions are fully explained, but to the extent they're explained properly, to the extent they're explained fully, they are explained properly by me. And that proper explanation is like the proper explanation for the seasons. No, it's not possible some new other explanation is going to come along and replace it because That explanation is correct. The JP dichotomy is not a dichotomy, right? It's a it's a set label that says we're going to call everybody who's an SE, SI, NI, NE DOM, we're going to call them perceivers. And anybody who's an F or a T DOM, we're going to call them judges. So yeah, that's not an actual distinction. That is a group label. Well, that's according to MBTI. According to socionics, and you got to remember, MBTI gets the introverts backwards, right? So INTPs are judgers, really, because they are TI DOMs. But MBTI calls them Ps. So, ENTPs are correctly named Ps because we have intuition. Your perceiving functions are the S's and the N's. So it would be the case that whoever has a perceiving function first is properly called a perceiver, which is why socionics does the uh, little of the other one. So they write INTP as INT little j, or they'll call them also L I I. LII. Logical, intuitive, introvert. No lighter? Well, I guess we'll have to go get one. We'll have to go inside and get a lighter. I'm thinking here, and it's kind of hard to explain how, like, what comprises a real distinction versus a group label. So, like, SI is a group label. I mean, SI is a real distinction. Knowledge function is a group label. And, but, a distinction including one thing, is that what makes it like a mechanical distinction? For example, intuitive is not a real distinction, but and NTP isn't a real distinction, but INTP or ENTP is a real distinction. So I guess it's just having only one of them. Well, yes, Fly Guy, if people were to understand the J or the P correctly, they would just understand it to mean this tells you what your dominant function is in terms of whether it's perceiving or judging function. But even if you used it just to mean that thing, it still wouldn't mark a real distinction because, like, there's not really any reason to group SESI, NE, NI into a group and call them perceiving functions any more than there would be to say group NE, NI, TI, and FE and call them communication functions. I mean, at least the term communication function represents a real distinction, like in terms of dealing with things in that turn based kind of action versus dealing with things in a real time sense of action. But there are other qualities that are common to communication functions, and some of them comprise hard, fast lines, and I guess some of them don't. Kind of complicated, really. Diarrhea, maybe a ferret would help your nephew get over his gerbil. I had a ferret. I love her. The only issue is that the food they sell in most stores is horrible for him and is a fast track to diabetes. I don't even know who I am type-wise anymore. I don't know either. Is it safe to cross the road? Perceived safe, judged safe? Okay, well, extroverted sensing is an action function. And introverted thinking is a determination function. If you're saying that, like, determining something is making a judgment, whereas knowing something is making a perception, well, you're wrong on both counts. Determining something is determining it. And one doesn't make a judgment, one determines a conclusion and or determines a significance. The idea that one has judgment, in other words, can distinguish between things, well, on some level that's true for all functions and informative of none. Extroverted feeling, extroverted thinking, those are interfacing functions. It's a form of action that's responsive, expecting to be responsive to, and then responsive to information gleaned by acting upon or with something, right? So, like, if I want to figure out what's wrong with those plugs in there, I would take up the thing and I get a tester of some kind and put it on it and see if it's getting any electricity at all, which I already know it's not. And if I were gonna just TE it, right, I'd have to like kind of just turn off the electricity to that, dig around in there, maybe take out the plugs themselves. I wouldn't even know how to do that. I'd have to figure out how to do that by looking at it, moving things around, seeing what happens, etc. So that's an interface kind of function. That's not judgment either. That's a form of action is attempting to either solve a problem while figuring it out. It's probably that, right? So the figuring out part is the TE part, and the SE part is the SE part. But um, for if you're generally speaking, when you're trying to figure out how to deal with something, you're probably going to be spending more time in the figuring out what exactly to do and less time in the actual doing it, unless it's a big thing, you know. So anyway, regardless, it's a TE kind of task. And the point is that, again, yes, you are taking action and then knowing something, and then taking an additional action based on that new knowing. That's how interface works. That's why it's paired with knowledge. In the other instance, you're taking action, you but you're deliberating it out in full first. Like, so if I were going to actually be using TI, a judgment function, to make a determination of crossing the street, I'd be asking questions like, well, did I recently tell anybody that I wouldn't cross the street? Have I seen any signs that indicate I can't cross the street here? Is crossing the street in this instance potentially morally wrong in some way? Is it fair? Those are kind of TI questions, right? I'd be looking for text. To the extent that there's physical TI, it wouldn't apply here. It would apply to something like a circuit board or something. Um, so if I made a determination that it didn't fail on any of those kind of word kind of vectors, then I might determine that it's fine to cross the street. And if I'm just using TI, maybe I'm somehow isolating that function and I have to make the decision just on TI. Well, at that point, I'm just going to cross the street. After all, there's not going to be any information posted statically that refers to what the fluid conditions of the road are right now. And I'd probably get hit by a car, you know. If I were trying to evaluate the question with FI, I'd be trying to make a determination of how badly I want to go across the street, whether I really actually want to go there at all, and if I do want to go there, do I want to go there badly enough to cross the street? Let me evaluate the value of what's at risk here. Maybe I might get hit by a car, and that would be bad. Maybe I'm going to just stay on this side of the street. You know, the proper functions to use when crossing the street are SE and I. You look to see if anything's coming, and your NI tells you, like, let's say it's a pretty busy street. There are some gaps, but they seem a little bit too small for you to run across the street. But there are some bigger gaps, but you know, when you see one, you're gonna have to pull the trigger right away because there'll be plenty of time for you to get across the street, but you know, you don't want to dilly-dally. Well, SI's looking around, NI's going, go. And then you run across the street. And if your NI was very bad, maybe you get hit by a car. Oh, sure. You could just use SE and less NI if you're going to the crosswalk. You just wait for the red hand to turn to a green guy, and then you walk across. Doing it that way, you can turn off your intuition or direct it to your phone or something until you see the light change. Then your intuition will say, that means go. Because it's your experience, but really like basic identification of identity of things like, you know, that's a red light, that's a green light. Those things are intuition at the most, at its most unassuming form, you know, just knowing that a fork's a fork and a spoon's a spoon kind of shit, you know. Well, no, nobody can turn off knowledge functions. I can't turn off my introverted sensing either. Nobody can. To turn off your introverted sensing would mean like, okay, well, for now I'm not going to feel any pain. It doesn't work like that. introverted intuition would just mean the only way you can turn off your intuition is to refuse to observe anything. If you like put your hands over your ears and eyes and you don't look at anything or feel anything, the the fewer things you can engage that might have relevance, the less your intuition will have to do. Your intuition will still be active in that sensory deprived environment, but it won't it won't have much to work with, because intuition is knowing about the outside world, whereas SI is knowing about your body and your own experience. So, in other words, it's knowing the world by way of yourself. It's what you might call object permanence. So, there's these two things that babies develop early on. One is object permanence. Object permanence is a baby's coming to understand, and this part of SI, that a thing is going to still be where I left it. In other words, I can remember where that thing is and come back to it later. Okay? Uh, the NI equivalent is what they call shape constancy. When you're a super little baby, if you see this and then you see this, you think it's a different kind of thing. You think it's a different thing because, after all, it looks so different. Looks like this, and or like this, and then this one looks like this. Different shape, different size, same color, but anyway. So you could think of intuition as being knowing what a thing is by virtue of what it is, rather than by virtue of how I relate to it. You can't turn off SI because not only could you not feel pain, but in a way that makes is a better corollary for NI. I can't stop an associative trigger. So if I see something that reminds me of that time that I embarrassed myself at a party or something, well, that trigger will make sure that that memory comes to me whether I want it or not. Same with intuition. If you are observing, you can't stop yourself from intuitively knowing whatever it is you intuitively know. Sometimes it's right, sometimes it's wrong. It's important to remember that just because intuition is the objective kind of knowing, which is to say, it knows based on the thing it's knowing about, not based on itself, um, doesn't mean it's correct. There are plenty of instances we can articulate where somebody might make the correct intuitive leap. In other words, given these clues, the correct thing to intuit is this. But then you find out actually intuition led you astray. Reality was just more random than that, and those three things that seem to link together and should be informative about each other and the whole thing turn out to be unrelated to each other and are not informative at all. The only issue being branching it out like that assumes experience. Well, it's not the case that a person who's using introverted intuition is not that has no access to introverted sensing. The the difference between how the two relate to one's experience is that for somebody who's heavily using introverted intuition, they're very likely to remember the takeaway from something or the relevant uh, product of the whole thing, and not remember the details by which they intuited that ultimate distillation of the thing. In contrast, say SI tool, NI polar, they are going to remember all the details and be unable to say which of them is the most relevant or which one is determinate, if there is such one in that kind of thing, right? So In both instances, experience accumulates over time, and both parties use stuff they've learned before. SI is also a learning function, so you could say it's responsible for like playing the guitar. I don't when I'm playing chords, I don't think about the chords at all. My fingers just play it as soon as I think of it. Like my fingers know what a C chord is. It's not even me who knows it and then tells my fingers in any sense, right? That kind of muscle memory links to SI. And it is the case that everybody has the minimum amount of a thing that you need to be a functioning human being. So nobody's SI is so bad that they forget to breathe and die. Nobody's SI is that bad. Nobody's SE is so bad that they can't get themselves to get up to go pee for such a long time that their bladder explodes. Nobody's well, FE may be an exception. So, like if you're in normal people, okay, nobody's FE is so bad that you're completely immune to all indications of like behave differently, or completely immune to people telling you you need to behave differently. Um, Nobody's NI is so bad that you can't tell a fork from a knife, etc. So there's certain like machine code level ways that the functions play out that everybody has a minimal amount of access to. FI polar is still going to feel emotions. They're just not going to know how to use them to determine things very well. Opinions on Steely Dan, I think they're great. And I think it's absolutely crazy that they are great, because if you were to describe that band and say, in any kind of meaningfully accurate description of Steely Dan, you'd say, but you're saying they're a band that does this kind of stuff. Anybody would say, well, that's got to be terrible. And in fact, any other band that tries to be like Steely Dan at all is terrible. Terrible. Okay, boomer. I'm not a boomer, and what did I say that made me sound old even? Well, the thing is, NI and SI both know things. So they're receiving functions. What is known all of a sudden, and it is known not because you sought the information, not because you were looking out, observing, waiting to see it, right? For example, if all of a sudden you get a sharp pain in your stomach, you know it all of a sudden because you've received that information all of a sudden. NI works the same way. And it is true that you're going to know more with your intuition about things you are observing more. If your intuition has more data to work with, it's more likely to intuit correctly. I'm Gen X, yeah. So what did I come out here to do? I want to barbecue something. So let me bring the barbecue around to the front. I don't feel like barbecuing around back today. We're at the very end of Gen X. We're the forgotten generation. Most people just call me a boomer. Rachel's dad's a boomer. I'm not a boomer. I'm what you might call a virile, vigorous explosion of youth. Hi, Capio. You want to help me carry the barbecue? I'm going to put you guys right here. Okay. Now let's get the bucket. Okay. Oops, I should have closed this drawer. Now I'm going to let bugs in. Really not a fan of letting bugs in. Alright, let's get the barbecue. Oh, I didn't realize how poorly you could see. I'm sorry. You missed all the exciting joy of the barbecue. But don't worry, you'll get to see this part. I could do a 3-meat surprise. Steak, chicken, and sausage. But you know what? Since I'm going to be barbecuing right here. Oh, fine. Where do you even put that broom? As you can see, I cleaned out the rain gutters earlier. And I threw all the crap down here, but I have not swept it up yet. Well, let me find that broom that's supposed to stay right there anyway. Let's find that broom. Where did I leave it this morning after I took it up to the roof? Did I leave it upstairs in the bedroom up there? Quite possibly. Could have brought it down here and put it down here. This isn't that broom, but this is a better broom for that purpose. I don't know if I want to blur the line between outside broom and inside broom. All right, I'm going to level up my kid's Fortnite account. Thanks much for your intellect, Eric. Cheers, level. Thank you so much for being here, Hippocrates 4 times base. I think you're A-OK swell. Now let's look for that broom. Oh shit, that reminds me. Yeah, here's the broom. But I almost forgot that I need to vacuum on top of this bed because when I was climbing the window, I tried to gently toss the Christmas lights onto the bed and one of the bulbs broke. So now there's glass on the bed. Thanks a lot. I got this broom. Now I'll get the vacuum. We can go up there, vacuum the bed. But we can vacuum the bed after we get the fire started, I think. Let me put on a different game on TV. Okay, let's see what other games are on. The athletics are on in the spring training game. I wonder if it's got the real broadcasters.
15 homers last year.
Oh, it's got Jenny.
By a couple teams in Major League Baseball, including the Cubs, right ahead of them. They had 223 homers. Yankees led the way with 274. In Dallas, if you were to project based on the Athletics lineup now,
I get where you're coming from, but why put your life in someone else's hands?
what is going to be?
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
For the home run leader.
Oh, Robo-Taxi.
I mean, I don't think there's any
Right.
reason to think that it won't be somewhere in that 250 to 300 range.
I mean, we do rely on
What that lineup featured,
machines not failing all the time. Like
then the man at the plate right now.
every time we fly in a plane, we rely on all of the machine aspects of it
The team were in the mix consistently at that.
not failing, right? So why is it so much more of a leap to including things like the automatic landing alignment thing and the autopilot, etc. So we trust all that stuff to do its job correctly without failing. Why not actually steering it? The process was I read a bunch, researched a bunch of stuff, and like, like for a bit I thought maybe Sicilianus was promising, but pretty quick I saw problems like, wait, why are they reordering the stack? But they say that this is actually the second strongest one, blah, blah, blah. The stack's not the stack because of strength, right? It represents the axial relations between different functions and accordingly the mirror slash flip thing. So like if you have NI1, then you have the mirror NE5. If you have NI1, then you have the flip SE4. And etc. That's why the stack's the way it is. Why would you reorder it, renumber it in some way? It makes no sense, right? So I kept running into shit like that. And I abandoned Sicilianus quickly enough, having gleaned enough to recognize what it was doing that made it invalid. Then I tried playing around with some ideas too, tried to come up with some subtype kind of things. And eventually, I just kept getting rid of shit that was bullshit until I was left with only things that actually made sense. Like, it's pretty critical in typology to be able to see which things you're saying, which terms you're using represent a real distinction being made and which are something else. So, like, most of the things people say about typology and terms they use and such, the terms they use either aren't terms that make real distinctions, or the way they're using them is not to make a real distinction. And it's hard to explain because something like knowledge versus determination, that's a real distinction. But it's also the case that a knowledge function comprises two different functions. So you can't just say, well, things that make up one distinction, like they, that's the end of the line, because that's not necessarily the fact as I showed you there, right? And the answer is that the real distinctions have operationalized definitions and are, and that they allow you also to do something other than just arrange things differently. Like if I say quadra, that's not a real distinction because even though you can operationally define it as individuals in the set that have the same conscious functions, it's not a real distinction because there's no reason to prefer that grouping of four over, say, all the ones that have F's in the one or two or something like that, right? There may be a real distinction in some sense, but it's not informative about types or functions. It's just a way to refer to a group, some commonalities that a group of four types might share. And what I determined eventually about socionics is that its basic problem is that it fails to determine which of its dichotomies are operationalized in a way that allows for them to be potentially at least determinate, and which of them are just observational distinctions that someone thinks correlate with this other distinction that also may not be operationally defined, nor is it ever seemed to discuss whether, like, how we should weight this. I don't think modeling information flow is necessary. It can be assumed as it can be observed, but any attempt to do so just backs the model into a corner for me too assumptive. I mean, I think I explained something about the directions and flow of information in the model just fine. There are four fields upon which people pay attention, internal physical, internal metaphysical, external physical, and external metaphysical. And if we were to try to completely isolate, say, extroverted intuition, what it would do would be it would put information on the either the external metaphysical or internal metaphysical field. So, and it's a put function, right? It puts the information. And TI and FI get information primarily, which is to say, TI will ask you what you mean by something. FI will find out about you and in relation to how much it likes or doesn't like or something, pities you or respects you. Not respects so much, but like I guess admires. The shifting time and space paradigm is currently unraveling all prevailing theories on quantum entanglement and the interactions between Newtonian quarks and strange matter. What you did is different, though. I'm talking about interactions between the parts, such as information from SI can only interact with a dynamic system, such as a TEFE model. G states this. Oh, well, that's not true at all. And the other thing is, it's hard for me to establish exactly, say, well, you can imagine, and I guess it's still different. Yeah, the thing is, the knowledge and interface functions seem more entangled than the action deliberation functions. Like you can't really, it's hard to imagine interface without knowledge because of the way that it's easy to imagine making a case, checking it all over, making sure it's airtight, testing it in the privacy of your own home, and then taking the action of delivering the case. So it's easy to imagine that something's in isolation, but it's actually never in isolation because the extroverted intuition and introverted thinking are in coordination the whole time you're at home checking it and stuff, right? So in reality, you can know more. But the thing is, nevertheless, it is the case that, like, I can extrovertly intuit without introvertedly thinking right now, just by saying random shit. I was once the king of Birmingham, where everybody had 100 hats, and together we joined in hands and sang, Kumbaya, my lord. I'm just extrovertly intuiting without any introverted thinking. Now, probably introverted thinking is there in some sense, saying that, and that's what makes me say I was the king of Birmingham and not the king of Birmingham. That's why I didn't say that, maybe. I don't know. But the point is that it's easy to isolate extroverted sensing from introverted thinking. Say you just like punch something. I don't know, kick something. I'm not exactly sure. Like if you're just like kicking something down the road, right? How does that involve any introverted thinking at all? In that instance, I would suppose it would involve its axiomate introverted intuition. Regardless, it's harder to imagine interfacing without knowledge than it is to imagine action without deliberation. So, obviously the the moment-to-moment mechanics of it are involve a lot of like switching back and forth, I guess you'd say. You know, well, like as I'm thinking about this in my head right now, I'm considering the implications of what I am going down here intellectually, and seeing if they it basically trying to extrovertly intuit problems with what I'm going to say, which is to say, trying to extrovertly intuit ways in which this might not TI hold up. So they're like handing off to each other super fast or something in a way that makes it in practice very difficult to completely isolate a given function from another function. But we can kind of isolate TI pretty well because you can ask straight up TI questions. You can eliminate everything but TI by getting rid of the words even and just saying, except for the statement connectives, if all P's are Q and only Q's are R and T is R, is T necessarily a Q? In that case, the answer would be yes. And there's nothing required to do that except for introverted thinking. Well, introverted sensing, if you're trying to remember it, but I guess there's some amount of memory even if you're reading it. It's an interesting line of thought. Yeah, socionics is a bunch of people playing with ideas. Nobody there has been put in charge of like compliance. There's no compliance officer. There's nobody there who actually knows how to make a case and what would comprise a successfully made case. You know, shooting shit down. What am I getting from in here? The torch, perhaps? Yes. Good thing to get. Oh, right, I was going to change the TV station. I don't want to watch this spring training game. Let's put on some March Madness. Imagine Eric and replaces TI stuff with FI stuff. You mean socionics? I have a friend who I think is an ENFP. She spends a lot of time comparing people and their ideals, how these things interact. Big anarchist type. Most textbook case of ADHD I've ever seen. Well, I mean, and that's where problems really occur with ENFPs is that they're gonna think themselves qualified to have opinions about, be activist about, and otherwise say things about stuff they're woefully unqualified to talk about. Big anarchist. It's like, what that means is I feel strongly the badness of statist oppression. Okay, well, you may feel badly about, you may feel sad about the badness of statist oppression, but utard. What else can you say with utard? If morality is just whatever a culture decides, that's not what morality is. In no way, shape, or form is that what morality is. Morality is the same thing it's always been. It is morally impermissible to violate the rights of another. And it is morally obligatory to fulfill certain kinds of obligations, usually contractual. But that moral obligation is a little weaker than a negative moral obligation to respect people's rights, because it is conceivable that unforeseen circumstances might make it impossible for you to fulfill your obligation. Maybe you die before you have a chance to do the work you got paid for example. It's not possible to be unable to fulfill your negative moral obligations because of unforeseen circumstances. You can always not murder somebody. Sure, you might accidentally crash a car into somebody and they die. But let's say it was entirely their fault. You had the green light, they ran the red light and crashed into you and they died. Well, you obviously have no moral culpability there, because not only was it not your fault, but more importantly, it wasn't intentional. And you weren't being negligent in any way. So, obviously, accordingly, it's not possible to accidentally fail to fulfill your negative moral obligations. That's what makes them universalizable and not time specific at all. It is true that different cultures have different ideas about how to focus their ideas about morality, but if they don't have fundamental to their understanding of morality that a respect for rights is morally obligatory, and the distinction I made between positive and negative rights, and if they don't acknowledge that what comprises virtue ethics and say what good things you should do does not universalize, if they don't agree with all of that, then they're just wrong about morality. We should always prioritize what I'm saying about morality, because it's the only morality that universalizes and protects the rights of everybody and limits the obligations of everybody. So people might tell you that morality is relative or something, or that we should be evaluating the morality differently in different cultures or something. They are just plain wrong.
Wow, look at you.
I'm just moving some of this. I cleaned out the rain gutters earlier.
Thank you.
And I threw it down here. I just want to kind of scoop it away a bit before I get the barbecue going. Hi, beautiful.
Hi, handsome.
I'm going to cook up I think I'm going to cook up a 3-meat combo.
Okay.
I'm going to make a steak, a smoked sausage, and a chicken.
Okay.
Then I think I might also make a salad. And I might put the chicken in the salad.
That sounds good. Can I only have about 2 of the meats?
Sure, you could have only one if you do only one.
I'm thinking, I like your idea of having the chicken on the salad, but I'm thinking also having kielbasa or the smoked sausage, because...
You don't have a smoked sausage?
Yeah.
Cool, great. All right, so I just need to start the barbecue up then. So I hope, Too Cool for School, that you now understand the truth about moral relativism, which is it has no truth. It's complete bullshit.
Can I give you a kiss?
Of course.
I love you.
I love you too. additionally know that the truth that what I'm saying about what I'm saying here, the truth of it, this is not something created, it's discovered. And you know it's discovered because it all fits together so perfectly. So it turns out if you do understand things by negative rights, as I'm saying, then you never run into any contradictions. Negative rights never come into conflict with one another. Positive rights may come into conflict with one another, but only after the right holder's right has failed to be fulfilled by the provider. So, like, if a company goes bankrupt, then the claimants, the various people holding on to some debt, some that the company owes them something, well, they have to get in line and take turns splitting up what they can to get some percentage of what they're owed, right? So, what I'm pointing out is that these distinctions reflect reality. The reason negative rights are comprise moral obligations that universalize is because it's never possible to not fulfill that. Like, it's never possible that you accidentally rob somebody, because to rob somebody includes to have the intent to do it, right? You may accidentally destroy their stuff and owe them a civil judgment, but that's different than a crime. And the distinction between morally impermissible and liable is the same distinction as the one we actually see between in criminal versus civil cases, right? Now, it is the case that the distinction between criminal and civil came after the distinction between criminally liable and otherwise existed in the world, right? Like, so for as long as people have existed, there's been a distinction between doing something accidentally and doing something on purpose. So when I describe this morality and you see how it fits perfectly with reality, the distinctions it's making are real ones that matter a lot, and that it makes good sense. You could also subject it to a veil of ignorance test and say, well, if I were up in heaven and I didn't know which culture I'd go to or which role I'd play in that culture, which understanding morality would I choose? And this is the only one anyone would choose, because if you don't choose this morality, that means you very well might be subject to, slavery, for example. And you don't know whether you're going to be a slave owner or a slave. So everyone would choose this, because why would they choose a model where it's more mushy, such that, like, well, your right to not have your stuff stolen is coming against my right to steal it. If you acknowledge that such rights could exist, then you'd really have no answers for anything. The whole purpose of a normative framework, or an understanding of how morality works, is to provide people definitive answers on the moral status of an action before they take it. Should I do this thing? Well, the answer to that question, if I'm evaluating the thing that I'm asking about, if the answer to the question is determined by Well, what are the outcomes going to be? Should I do this thing? Should I rob the neighbor's house? Well, what are the outcomes going to be? Well, maybe I'll get put in jail. I don't want that to happen, so I won't do this thing. If that's your determination you're making, then you're not making a moral choice. Instead, you are being deterred by the threat of consequences, which means you're not morally complete as a human being yet. So I'll watch Missouri, Miami. It all makes sense now. Are you guys talking about what I'm saying? Or are you just joking or what? Or are you serious? I mean, that's the thing. Morality should make sense. It shouldn't be like left in the hands of the interpretation of some religious elder. And it shouldn't be the case that it links to how important somebody is. Why does he get to present evidence against me, but I don't get to present any evidence? Because he's more important than you. Shouldn't be like that, right? This they call the fourth element. Not water, not earth, not air, but fire! I believe 87% of Americans claim that fire is their favorite element. You know, I took a poll last night. A lady called from Quinnipiac University. They were doing a poll about people's opinions about AI. They also asked about Trump. Just a very broad question, which was, do you approve or disapprove? Like, strongly disapprove, yeah. Obviously, I strongly disapprove. I have my glasses right here. Why don't I put them on instead of just holding them in my hand and squinting? Prometheus gives us fire. Long live Prometheus. I can't imagine a time in my life where my function got better or worse. I don't think functions get better or worse. But it is the case that your deficit areas may come to cause you less harm. I may not be any better at valuing things that I hold precious than I ever was, but I'm more cautious about, with my FI, but I'm more cautious about at least not hurting such things than I once was, such people. And, obviously my FI polar is still causing plenty of harm in that I rarely call my daughter, I love her so much, But I'm a lot gentler than I used to be, especially with people I love, even with the cats, They frustrate me sometimes, but I don't ever get actually mad at them, Just frustrated, like when a kid says, "Mom, mom, 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 mom," same kind of thing. So it is the case that I think my FI polar is less set up to cause me harm than it was when I was younger. But I attribute that not to better FI, but to SI conscious and just understanding cognitive functions and how previous harms incurred by that deficit area linked to my cognitive function stuff. We got a smoked sausage, and then we get am I going to cook a steak too? No, I don't think I'm going to. I don't think I'm going to. I think chicken and sausage is plenty to cook. Okay, well, that doesn't have anything to do with your type. Joke. So I should put this in some kind of a marinade. I wonder if I have another one of those packages of taco stuff. That really worked well for a marinade last time. I literally feel myself changing week by week. Well, people do change. The thing to remember is that half of our experience is determined by universal stuff. Cognitive functions, stuff like, not to be provocative or anything, but things like our sex we are doesn't change, and we might try to change our body, but our sex is encoded in our genome in ways that obviously you can't change, and in ways that have a lot of different impacts, many, maybe even most of which we can't exactly articulate either. There are the obvious ones like testosterone versus estrogen and such, but there are no doubt other ways in which a person's biological experience as an animal being, is subtly impacted by their sex. Keeping in mind that I'm not making any normative kind of claims about this stuff here. I don't seem to have another packet of this. The other half of who we are is determined by our experience. And certainly, anybody who's been around pre-2022 and post-2022 knows that I've undergone a lot of change since my parents' death. My affect is different. My habits are different. My sense of who I am is different, and obviously I feel old now in a way that I didn't before. My attentional focus is more on long-term things now than it ever has before, but wasn't necessarily right away. I'm going through a lot of changes. But none of them have been to how I pay attention. I still have the same cognitive function stack and always have had the same cognitive function stack. And but to at least some extent, why and how I'm different now was shaped, maybe even determined by my function stack. You know, whatever happens, I meet it with the same attentional strengths and deficits, and whatever happens may be vastly more or less suited to the thing, to my attentional stack. So it's always going to be the case that there's an ongoing dynamism to every person, if on no other vector than that one. We deal with different things in different moments, and some of those things were more well intentionally suited to deal with than others. Am I complaining and gossiping about my friends? You're talking about what Casey Jones is saying. I mean, yeah, I'll gossip about my friends. For sure. Did you hear that one lady did that one thing? So, and that's another reason why it's important to make the distinction between a person's affect and their personality type, or their personality. Because it's always going to be the case for anybody of any type that if their whole family is killed in a car crash, and they're the only survivor, they're going to be dramatically impacted by that. They may have been perky and talkative and before, and it may be a long time, if ever, that they get back to that same affect. But their cognitive function stack hasn't changed. I think that's reflective of is the fact that, you know, in an ideal world, all young people move through an idyllic world of innocence where they can feel safe and happy and just play and not worry about shit and live the most joy they can, you know. But life and the blows that it deals guarantee that even the most cheerful person is subject to being knocked into a different equilibrium, at least for stretches of time, you know? Like you put an individual of any given type, let's say, I don't know, ISFP, and you put them in one kind of work community environment where it's perfectly well suited for them. Their job is exactly in their wheelhouse. The people, and let's pretend this is a community before social media and stuff, and they're kind of stuck with their local people. and everybody's complementary to their type. They've got lots of rich, satisfying relationships, doing things they like to do, like going sailing or whatever. And they're incredibly happy. And then you move that same ISFP into an environment where they're expected to do things all the time that they're unable to do or that they feel defensive about. Their job's constantly asking them to extrovertedly intuit and introvertedly think. They're unavoidably failing at all times. Their community people around them, similarly, is hyperfixated on rationality and highly values the ability to improvise creatively with words and thinks that people who can't do that are shitty and stuff. Well, obviously, you're going to have one ISFP having a certain one way about them, the other having a very different way about them, because people are best served when the world appreciates them for who they are. It's a fairly rare occurrence, really, but people get a lot of pushback in a lot of ways. By pushback here, I mean pushback about who they are, not what they're saying. Now just look at that video that I clipped out earlier, Kristen, whatever, and like, guess who gets the worst treatment in the video? Guess which type gets the worst treatment? Should be obvious. It's the same type that always gets the worst treatment in any typology content. Did you guess ESTJ? You guessed right. ESTJ just gets shat upon as this control freak, rules enforcing policeman kind of character. You're against discriminating against MBTI types? I mean, the thing is, nobody discriminates against MBTI types in the sense of discriminating against, certain races, because everybody discriminates against MBTI types involuntarily based on the inherent compatibility of the two types' respective functions. So it also depends on the context, obviously. Around here, I will have a lot of conflict with, say, TI Polar coming in and not just wanting to be able to just know things rather than having to determine them with TI because it's their blind spot, but advocating that it's better that way. Like, your problem, Eric, is you don't see the big picture. You need to open your mind more. The truths of this thing you're talking about are something nobody can ever know. The only real knowledge is admitting you know nothing. And other wonderful platitudes like that. I didn't get the tongs. There's nothing wrong with ESFPs. What I'm saying is, I was just trying to exemplify the fact that people will run afoul of types that are not complementary to them. They won't think they're being racist against a given MBTI type. They won't really quite be able to explain why, but I just don't like that guy. The guy's fucking horrible, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, maybe he's a mutual friend to a group of friends, and the other people in the group of friends are like, I don't get it, dude. What's wrong with him? Yeah, I guess he's a little bit blah, 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 right? So they're not intentionally being discriminatory against any given type. But it is the case that everybody will be discriminatory against conflicting types, provided the contest brings that conflict into result. Because, like, let's say some people are just playing a trivia game, like Trivial Pursuit. Well, ESFP and ENTP will never come into conflict over that because it's just recalling answers. It's just SI. There's no TI involved. Or you think that ESFPs get insulted most in typology circles? You're probably, I would guess, overweighting your experience here and generalizing it to typology circles, because although you know more maybe about typology circles than I do, you probably traveled more around more broadly, so maybe not. And the thing is, I try to say the right thing, right? I try to say, look, there's nothing wrong with ESFPs at all. And I say that now. It is the case that if they come here and start talking about typology stuff, then it's almost sure to be some kind of a conflict, because what they're saying about it is almost, well, it's most likely to be their understanding of it from an NI perspective. And they may be entirely well-intentioned. Like, you know, Cone Man comes to mind. He was not ill-intentioned. He thought he was an INFJ. He definitely wasn't. And part of the reason for that, why did he think that when he definitely wasn't? Why was he so persistent that he was that when he definitely wasn't? Well, that had to do with his cognitive function stack, specifically that he was, I'm pretty sure, I never typed him, but almost certainly ESFP. So in that instance, you can see how there's going to be conflict around here because with ESFPs, because they want to intuit and feel what type they are. But that's not any way in which anybody can ever determine anything. I mean, not nobody can ever determine anything that way, but not about their type. It's kind of like trying to determine how many miles a car has on it by eyeballing the outside of it. You might be good, super good even at guessing how many miles it has. Maybe you are super good at identifying, well, it's this year or this model. And I know that people who drive this model car average this many miles a year. You could also be super good at picking up on physical cues on the thing. Like, I see this kind of wear and tear is indicative of a lot of miles, blah, blah, blah. And it's still not a good way to determine how many miles a car has on it. You should just look at the odometer. Here it happens, but I've seen them spoke of especially harshly at Psycho Local Cafe or whatever that forum is called, huh? Well, we have the kind of clash that one would expect between two and polar of a given thing. The blind spot means that you'll keep not getting it. Like, I'll keep, and it plays out not just as it's my blind spot, it's my place of least resistance. People can get me by attacking my FI. I don't have any defenses there. It also means it's place of least resistance like this. Like, I'll keep trying to explain TI stuff in different ways and not get the fact that we're just on some level be unable to accept the fact that I might as well be speaking French right now. This guy is not ever going to understand what I'm saying because he is locked into trying to understand things with his emotions and his intuition. I keep trying to help by being like, no, that's not what that means. That means this, and it has to mean something specific or it doesn't mean anything, and yada, yada, yada. Well, it's never going to make any progress at all because he is his blind spot. And my blind spot is what he's using instead, so I'll never be able to recognize that for what it is either. I mean, I can recognize it for what it is, but I'm saying an average person who doesn't know cognitive functions, who runs afoul of that, they will not have any concept of how to deal with it. They'll be like, what is happening here? What is wrong with this person? Why aren't they responding to what I'm saying? Why are they using words in such a disrespectful fashion? And even as I'm understanding that they are failing to understand everything I'm saying to them over and over and over again, I still won't get that, like, more clarity with TI isn't going to help, What did I come in here for?
Talking to TI polar people.
Yeah, I'm trying to explain how the polar is not just like my FI polar is my blind spot, which means people can attack my FI or I'm going to make FI mistakes. It means I'm also not going to recognize that the problem with this failure to communicate is they're trying to parse it with FI and NI rather than TI and whatever. All right. So let's move things around a bit. Now this obs magobs is going to need to be cut if I want it to be cooked through properly. Because it's thick and frozen, and that's a recipe for not being fully cooked. I guess I'll put this in my pot first. Then I'll cut it here. Then I'll cut here. Hot, 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 hot. Oh my God, that chicken is hot. Not the chicken that's hot, it's the fire that's hot. Let's pour a little juice on it. Okay. Now we're going to turn her over. We're going to turn her over to the Turner broadcast system. Okay. Oh, these are pretty dark. These have gone from pink to brownish to black. Oops. Yeah, that's fine. Let's just scrape off this black part, it'll be fine. Now on this side, I want to cut it again, but this time this direction. All right, let's put some juice on it. We're going to juice it up. We're going to juice it up like Juice Newton. If you don't love Juice Newton, what is wrong with you? Oh, hot. All right. Flip her again. You see the rawness in there. Obviously, we don't want any rawness in our chicken. Check it out with a flashlight. Looking raw as raw McGraw. Oh yeah. That's some raw looking chicken. Okay. Well, we just need to let it cook longer, that's all. These are fine. Don't worry about them. They're a little blackened on the outside, no big deal. Put this lid on and let this get some bonus time. You know, it's not really bonus time, it's still in regulation. You and me, grilling in the dark, lying in the grass, counting on the stars. I'm not a car person either. That's why you'll frequently hear me saying such things as car schmar. So, looks like Florida is absolutely stomping the 16 seed, not unexpectedly. Kansas, sadly, is stomping Cal Baptist. And the Yukon Furman game looks still relatively close, 4-point game. You won't see me in a new car either. Just give me a cheap car, it's fine. I don't need anything fancy. Yeah, well, I'm still so traumatized by that car experience. The worst thing that could possibly happen with a car. I think I need to add more wood to this. I'm not sure this is going to be done, daddy, done, but it's run out of heat. Well, I guess we'll just leave it there for a while and see. Just leave it there for a while and see, that's all. All right, I don't replace my phone either, but I I broke my last phone. I had to get a different one. It's just like stopped working so much that I couldn't even like get anything off of it, like any codes or anything. It was kind of a pain in the ass, but I eventually figured it out. So yeah, I clipped out that lady's video. I think it'd be fantastic if I could get the other bit of it done before bed. But if I don't, then I can finish it in the morning. Shouldn't take that much effort. You know, I briefly flirted with the idea of just not type policing her at all because it's kind of hard to type police that kind of content. But I thought I'd talk a bit about like, okay, she's stereotyping them as this, and that certainly might be an ENFP quality, but it links to a flawed extrovert sensing, not their. It's not an expression of their dominant function. Say stuff like that. So I decided to go ahead and go with it. Her acting's good. The writing's not bad at all. To the extent to which those are indicative of her type, well, I think being a good actress is consistent with being in the SFE, or is certainly not inconsistent with it. And as far as the writing goes, well, I probably would have expected it to be worse than it is, but I will say it does an absolutely terrible job of pretending to be extroverted intuition. I don't. It doesn't seem like ESFPs get INFJs at all either. Don't get ENTPs. Don't get INFJs, INTPs. Her her thing for INFP is kind of weird. I don't quite know what to make of it. It's like the INFP is just kind of reading the ENFJ's soul and telling them how it's really for them, not for others. And it's kind of like, I don't know, ripping them a new one, kind of. That seems not very INFP like to me. Well, what do I know? I'm just the world's best typologist. Eric, you can't say that. People don't like it when you say that. It's fine. It's fine. What am I gonna do? Lie? The chicken needs some more time, but I think I will be able to finish it right here on the fire. I don't think I'm gonna need to. I don't think I'm gonna need to put more wood on. Well, it's still cooking, but sure that piece is done. That piece is probably done. Hard to say, really. It'll cook out. It's fine. All right. Let's just put this lid back on. We're gonna go get a cutting board. Come back out and we'll get the meat. Actually, I think instead of bringing the cutting board to get the meat, I'm just going to get a plate. So I can use the big cutting board for cutting the lettuce for the salad. All right, let me get a plate. You can fit it all on here, no problem. Well, if when I get this in the kitchen, it's a little undercooked, which I don't think it is. But if it is, I'll toss it in the pan for a second. Obviously, these sausages aren't undercooked. Okay. Alright, so what I want to do here is I first want to chop up the lettuce and put that in the bowl. I could also include a little bit of onion. And put this flashlight back. Furman, take it easy, Tom. All the other games are trash. Yeah, that's goaltending, all right. Okay. So we've got some lettuce, we've got some onions, and we've got some dressing, all of which can contribute to a salad. And get some. Look at these roaches open. Either of them? This one seems to be open. Alright, so we got some roquefort dressing here. Let's bring this over here. This is fine. I just turn on this right here. Okay. So, first thing first. Keep this bag for compost. Take out that onion. We're going to take this out of its wrapping. Okay. Now, here's the thing about lettuce. If you take off a few layers of outermost leaves, you get down in there deep enough, then you don't have to wash it. That's just for iceberg lettuce. Because it, the outer layers protect the inner layers. Just go in the compost, put it in here. Now, for this one, we will put about that much lettuce, maybe even a little bit more. That's probably enough. Let's cut a little bit. Alright. Now we'll chop up this lettuce nice and small. I've washed my hands several times, but I'll wash them. Because it depends on what counts as wash your hands. I've washed like a pan and stuff, which kind of invariably washes your hands at the same time. I guess the other times were earlier. I don't know. It doesn't hurt to wash them again. I may have washed them before dealing with the chicken. No, I don't remember. Doesn't matter because it's cooked after I touched it. Okay, now we're going to chop up this lettuce a lot more. This is not the ideal knife for this, obviously. My big knife apparently is in the dishwasher. This is not nearly as good for that purpose as the other knife, but it'll do. Okay, put this in here, and this in here, and all of that in there. Plus all of those. Now, we've got some lettuce in the bowl, just like you always wanted. Now it's time to chop up this onion. This knife only works if I put my hand over the edge, because it's not so big, you know. So I don't have as much distance between my fingers and the cutting board. Right here, so. Okay, so we're going to put this into a pile again. I'm going to get some more chops. It's probably too much onion for one salad. No trouble, get down. No, shoot. At least he listens to me compared to if I don't pick her up and put her down, she won't get down. Okay, so this is a lot of onions. I put this many onions in there, which is a lot of onions, but I don't think I'm going to put all the onions in there. Although, you know, there. That's an oniony salad now, and that's fine. Sometimes salads need to be onion. Next, I'm going to get this chicken. I'm going to cut it right here into small pieces. Like this bit of chicken here is overcooked, obviously. But that doesn't mean it's bad. This piece seems to be perfectly done, pretty much. It's still a little raw right there. God damn it. Fine. These pieces are fine. You get when you cook frozen chicken. Especially when you get a thick piece. Should have gotten a thinner piece of frozen chicken. I might as well toss all of this into the pan over here. Heat it up a bit. Then get a little soy sauce. Up there. Put a wee bit of the soy sauce in here. Maybe a little bit of wine. And now when we get a stir, get that nice and hot. And then I'm going to need actually these will be fine. I'll get these bowls here for the sausage. Okay, turn that off. Come back over here. Got these bowls. Put this aside. Cut it in half first so I can make the pieces a little smaller. There's the choking on a joint. That's kind of the great thing about these things is, you know, obviously Maybe try the outside a little bit. Doesn't matter. The inside's delicious, and the blackened outside tastes good anyway. Now this one for me. We will cut down the middle like so. And then we will go like this. Okay. All right. Now let's go back to the chicken right here. We're going to pour it into here, like so. Now I'm going to come back over here. We're going to get some of this roquefort dressing. We'll pour it on. Let's premiere. Seems to be about the right amount. Toss it all around. I'll tell you about it. Okay. Oops. All right. Now let's bring the salads with the grilled chicken. And then we'll bring the sausages and we'll bring some mustard as well. So Econ is up in this game. They're only up by 3 points. Furman's trying to, hang tough. Mustard. Not very much yellow mustard left. Seems to me we have another jar someplace. Rachel! Oh, I am tired. 2-point game now. UConn's still up. Delicious. Well, it's true that the chicken in the salad is not as good as the chicken was last time I made it. But it's still good.
With Webness, smarter search tools and expert agents, the right
Oh my goodness. Mm-hmm. It is good. Hey Rachel!
Jenny, it's always a good deal to side with your mother-in-law.
Dinner's right.
It's always.
Always. You side with my own mother-in-law all the time.
Love that woman.
She's amazing.
Love that woman. Shout out Mary.
No question. She's watching.
Nice to hear the age broadcasters back on TV. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is grilled chicken salad.
Ooh, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. I'm not like immediately sure which game they're talking about because there was a couple that went to overtime. Let me see which game I'm talking about. Might have been the one I failed to watch that went to overtime. Here's some mustard, but we don't have very much left in this bottle.
Okay.
We're just gonna have to have a little bit of mustard. I think maybe we might have another mustard bottle somewhere, but
I don't think we do.
okay, so second half Missouri and Miami might be worth watching.
You're the cat master of the kitten parade.
Hmm. Oh, UCF came back. UCLA only won the game by 4. Obviously, the sausage is a little overcooked, but
It's okay.
probably just eat it like fruit and then eat the inside and spit out the skin part. Hmm.
Oh yes.
Santa Clara, yeah, that was sad. I was at the game that was a buzzer beater. I actually wanted to watch that one, got distracted, didn't end up watching it, and kind of glad I didn't because I was rooting for Santa Clara.
What's your dressing?
Roquefort.
It's good.
Mm-hmm. Good. It was invented by the Viscount of Roquefort.
Really?
No. Doesn't Roquefort sound like a fancy aristocratic name?
It does. Mmm. Get lettuce. You go shopping too? Or are we out?
We got more than half of a head left.
Oh, okay.
You know what? When's on my four went the third meat. I just had two meats, chicken's in the salad, and sausage by itself. Yeah, I was gonna go steak, sausage, and chicken, but I saved the steak for another time.
Yes. I have two of my chickens.
Here you go,
Trouble.
See if you like it. Mm. Two meats, not three. Slogan for the frugal. Oh, you're saying. Why not use your fork? Well, now I am. Mm. It's pretty tough. I overcooked it. Well, some parts are not so bad, but like the black parts, they get pretty tough. They're not very easy to eat. No.
Did I leave my other joint on here?
I can roll you some more when I'm done eating.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I'm trying not to bite on my right side at all right now. No thanks, young media. Young media is not a witness.
Does this lettuce go in here like this?
Mm-hmm. Well, I am what you might call tired as 100 gallons of fatigue. Hmm. You live in a tiny home, your house isn't very big anyway. I don't know if we could live in a tiny home, but we could live in a smaller home than this. That's for sure. Well, Alamo City Tell.
Are you thinking about moving?
No, I'm just responding with what they're talking about.
Mm.
A tiny home. Like, I could live in a tiny home. My house is, I don't think we could live in a tiny home. We could live in a house that's smaller than this, but we could not live in a tiny home. I think tiny homes are good for people who spend a lot of time outside. Well, Alamo City Cello, I respect the fact that if you find dinner thrilling, that's your prerogative. Personally, I find it kind of relaxing. Who are you talking to, Alamo City Cello? You mean a minimalist? Okay, understood. Let me, There we go.
You could delete that one.
Salad is really good. Hi, Josh. Yeah, tell me about it. Yeah, I didn't know what to make of him either. But he came in nasty today. I trust Black Guy when he says he's been nasty for weeks, so see you later. I can't recall him ever adding anything of any value to any conversation. Joe Media wants to be a Sasquatch guide. Uh-oh, Timber Girl. Have you been fraternizing with the gays? You didn't know that mustard was made from rent? Until you were on your deathbed? Finally, one of your relatives was like, we've all been keeping it from you your whole life, but mustard is made with turmeric.
What was that?
Probably the broom sliding down the wall.
Oh.
I will go check right now. Get a beverage anyway. I'll tell you what she does behind closed doors, simple girl. Does this ring a bell? So yeah, it's fine for you to fraternize with the gays. I was just joking. Fraternize all you want. If you guys really start fraternizing, you could even join a fraternity.
Are you finished?
No, well, I mean, for right now, yeah, but if you're gonna put it away, you can just put my salad and my sausage together.
Okay.
Put it in one bowl is fine. Alright, yeah, just put it in one bowl is fine for me. This needs to go back inside. Let's go put this back inside first, and then we'll smoke a cigarette. Get away, bugs. Plenty of cleanup tomorrow, that's for sure. But I don't feel like cleaning up tonight.
What can I do to help?
Nothing. I was just saying, I'll clean that up tomorrow. I don't feel like cleaning it up tonight. Maybe it's the case when some people talk about cleaning up, blah, blah, blah. They're really trying to say, maybe you should do it. That's definitely not what I'm doing. Well, the majority of the time, I clean up not after I'm done cooking, but before I cook the next time. And depending on my mood, I may only clean up the necessary things before I cook the next time. But it never gets too gross in there. A big help to that is having a dishwasher. It's a it's a lot worse when you don't have a dishwasher. A lot harder to keep the sink free of piled up dishes. And of course, if your sink piles up too much with dishes, then it becomes hard to wash your dishes in the sink. Another way of putting that, simple girl, is they are human and they need to be loved just like anybody else does. Thanks, Morrissey, for those immortal words. I am the sun, I am the air, of a shyness that is criminally vulgar. I am the sun and air of nothing in particular. So shut your mouth. How can you say I go about things the wrong way? Pretty good stuff, the Smiths, you know. They've got some good albums. She obviously decided to become gay because she's one of those damn liberals and she's trying to piss me off. Not really, obviously. According to some people at some like Republican rally or Trump rally or something, they were trying to say that the song YMCA is not gay. They were doing it because it's just a simple song about young men who enjoy athletic activity at the YMCA. What are they playing there? Obviously, like pickup basketball, racquetball, maybe. I was looking for a job and then I found a job. And heaven knows I'm miserable now in my life. Why do I give valuable time to people who don't care if I live or I die? There, you look very intimidating and professional in your cop outfit. Mm, well, I'm the kindly old small town cop. Ain't nothing to be scared of here, lest you got any drugs in the car. You don't, do you? I thought it was a pretty good uniform. It's a different uniform than the one I was wearing before. I think Winston Mama's got us another one. Fits a lot better. I suppose in theory it's possible I ordered it, but probably not. Thanks, Winston's mom. And the best news of all, I've been super annoyed with this horrible copy of it that I have that's overcompressed and stuff. Well, I captured a better copy of it that sounds better and does not have nearly as many um, ugly sounding artifacts in it. Well, it is the case that I did a better job than maybe I have in the past of using the space. Like, I knew I didn't want to have a lot of my background behind me because I'm not hanging up a green screen and putting a background on it, you know? So I just thought I'd get real close to the camera and crop out all the parts of me that weren't necessary. I kept the uniform in frame, obviously, but yeah, I was pretty proud of myself for yesterday's video. Like, all right, that was pretty good, pretty well put together. Not perfect. I could optimize my workflow a little bit more, but it's definitely already way more optimal than it used to be with Typology because at least I have a more optimized way of clipping them. Hmm. Think the two have something to do with each other? Your crime, destroying the vulnerable emotions of your mates on the basketball court. Yeah, well, as I was saying earlier, maybe it was just a rage. I don't know if the stream was on or not, but that guy, he talked about INFJs reasonably correctly, but it's also the case that I don't really think any INFJ would make that kind of like clumsily self-aggrandizing stuff and not cringe themselves to death in the process. I didn't feel as though that was good enough reason to arrest him. And I didn't really want to say it either because it seemed too mean. But obviously, obviously, I didn't know how to convey that at all. Yeah, he was really proud of hurting their feelings with his pointed criticisms, is correct. No, social media. I can't. Or at the very least, I don't want to. Okay, the second half of the Furman game is coming on. Oh no! And UConn steals it immediately. Furman's already down by 4. I'm sure UConn's going to pull away here in the second half. Obviously, we'd all love to see Furman knock off the Huskies, but yeah. But the thing I was queuing on was so subtle, right? Like, um, he got some things wrong. I just didn't feel like I could articulate well enough why he wasn't an INFJ. 6-point game now. It looks like it's going to get out of hand. What kind of accent is it? Some kind of southern accent. I mean, he certainly smelled of FI to me in some spots, but I'm not particularly good denying. I'm not particularly good at identifying FI. Like, it doesn't seem like an adequate reason to be like, he seemed to have a lot of FI. Well, why did he seem that way? I don't know. He was like feeling it. Right. Well, I'm actually not worried about whatever feedback I get, as long as I'm confident that I did a good job and um, erred on the side of caution. You know, like if I was kind and accurate throughout, not you know keeping in mind the person overall rather than just what I'm talking about, then I don't think I'll really care about the feedback. I've had a lot of time to process the whole thing. Clay Arnell, I wasn't denied the freedom. I made a choice. And, there was certainly a time where I made a lot, um, a lot of type police videos. And I don't necessarily think the quality was where I wanted on all of them. And I also kind of burned through a lot of. I didn't have clarity about what I was doing, and yada yada yada. Let me see. Clay or no? Well, it does look like he's still active. He's got 50,000 subs. Well, he's active 2 months ago, which isn't super long, but not super recently anyway, either. Yeah, I could do him. That's certainly a possibility. Did you forget to forgive your parents by honoring them? I have nothing to forgive. My parents didn't wrong me in any way. I may not have honored them adequately, but it wasn't because I didn't forgive them about anything. I had great parents, they didn't need any forgiveness. Yeah, well, I got Dear Christian lined up. It's not exactly the kind of content that I have historically type policed, I don't. Oh, yeah? Yeah, well, that does sound like a bunch of bullshit. He could use a good stern scolding, I'm sure. I heard some stuff about him, but I don't know what to make of it, really. I don't even remember exactly what it was I heard. The article's from 2020. A little dated, show media. Little dated. But then, as now, number one on the list should have been me. I probably wasn't on the list at all. It's possible that the Love Who Discord is the most active typology server. Well, somebody should send him a certificate of achievement. I'm gonna pull a few more bowls. Then I'm gonna wrap this up. Cognitive personality, yeah, I don't know if I type policed him or not, but I probably did. What do I think about Dario Nardi? I think he doesn't get how to do things at all. It won't do you any good to try to do brain scans of people and link brain activity to certain cognitive functions if you don't know what type they are and you inaccurately are triggering certain things assuming they're this when they're actually not, you know? He's pretty clearly TI polar. Oh, you mean do Dario Nardi as a Type Police episode? Um, does he even have a channel? You know, there's definitely something to be said for a longevity, but it would seem that consistency may be at least as important. By consistency, I mean consistency in long form video uploads. Obviously, I'm very regular about live streaming. And it's consistency, it's consistently whatever it is. I don't know if that qualifies as any kind of good consistency, but I think it's fair to say that there aren't a ton of channels that upload as often or live stream, you know, upload, live stream, whatever, various formats, as much of their time doing YouTube for as long as I've done YouTube. You know, it's people burn out, people expect people's channels to continue producing the same kind of thing and only that kind of thing, and understandably people get tired of that or run out of material or what have you. It's not that common to have a channel that's steadily, regularly putting up content as often as this channel does. And there certainly is some value in that. You know, people get accustomed to things having object permanence. You know, they can go to it for a while, then they can go away a while, and when they come back, then they want it to still be there, still be the same thing. Type Police in Koreatown and YouTube, we can use auto dubbing. That's not a bad idea at all. We could get a lot of Korean eyes on a video. It might be substantially more successful than a normal one. It's a pretty great idea, Play Guy. I'll see what the auto translate. I'll see how good the auto translate is. Could be a funny idea as well. auto dubbing now is available in Korean and some other languages. Yeah, I mean, if it's been fixed, like if it works well enough, then I could totally do that. I'm very accustomed to reading English subtitles while people are speaking Asian languages. 9-point game, but Furman's not rolling over and dying here. They are making some shots. UConn obviously is a highly seeded and highly thought of team, expected to go far. Maybe a lot of people have them as a dark horse. Maybe you can call it 2 seed a dark horse. A dark horse national championship contender. Pow! Now it is a 7-point game. Worst case scenario, we get a bunch of Korean viewers who tell us how awesome Korea is. Yeah, South Korea is fine. Wouldn't want to go to North Korea. I was entered into a contest. I won second prize, all expenses paid trip to North Korea. I would decline. Shannon? She's busy milking a cow? Who is Shannon? Who's Shannon? Tell you what, that Shannon has been around here lately. Yeah, maybe their name is It's Me Shannon. Or are you talking about some other Shannon? Oh, that Shannon. Yeah. Okay, gotcha. Now I understand the reference. The North Korean defectors are fun to listen to. What do they say? They say, oh my God, North Korea was so great. I was so sad that I had to defect. Let me pull a couple more bangers. I feel like I'm kind of getting high, so that's kind of nice. It's always a treat when it's not just perfunctory. Let's see how weird it is going from North Korea point of view to a real one. Well, Winston's mom, I try to and should give it 1 full week between taking mushrooms. But when I feel like cheating a little bit, then I'll take it, a day before a week. So Monday is a high likelihood day. Right now it's just Friday. Well, that's an excellent question, Winston's mom. Yes, I think I have enough Adderall left for one more mushroom trip. In theory, of course, if I got super antsy, I could try to take it on Sunday. Mushrooms has such a ridiculous, uh, tolerance curve that it's like I don't want to eat those mushrooms only to discover that there's not enough mushrooms for the amount of time I waited. And I don't trip very hard. The other thing is I've got another mushrooms coming in from my other mushroom connect. And I kind of want to get those mushrooms too and then mix the two mushrooms together. Have I ever tried waiting longer to see if the effects are more? Well, I've not tried to do that, but there have been plenty of occasions when I couldn't get mushrooms for a while, or didn't get them for a while, or it was too hard to get them. And probably it's not implausible to me that waiting a little bit more than a week might help, but I don't think much more than that would make a difference. Thanks, Rahul. And the reason I don't think it would make a difference is because uh, I mean, I guess it would depend on the half-life of the stuff. I don't know what the half-life is. I don't have a good understanding why it's like that at all, because there are plenty of things that have a long half-life, but the risk of that normally is that, if you take it again before the first one's out of your system, it starts to pile up, you know. That can be a problem with benzos. No, thank you, show media. I don't know why you want me to have a Pepsi shirt. It's not like I'm particularly a fan of Pepsi. I just happen to have a Pepsi jacket. I don't have the jacket because it says Pepsi on it. It's just a jacket that happens to say Pepsi on it. They say mangoes make your high on weed higher. Is there a shroom equivalent? Well, Adderall, I guess. Okay, show media. Here we go, Furman. Good job. 6-point game. Furman's hanging tough. Furman is not rolling over for UConn here. And I want them and you to know that I'm proud of them. Oh, good board. Oh, not good enough. Eric's mic for me is muffling and sounding strange. Is it just me? That's not my mic. That's my voice. Really? Well, that sounds to me like a good cue to go. I'm tired. I should try to get as much sleep as I can tonight. I want to just kind of chill, watch a little TV. So thank you all for being here. I love you all. I wish you all the best. And may all your Christmases be bright. I'll see you tomorrow.